Hello, I'm Blythe Stevens, MFA Bliss Catalyst and creator of A Blythe Coach, where I help multi-passionate creatives dance through their difficulties and take leaps of faith. One part of being a mindful mover and a teaching artist and a dance educator or dancer, choreographer, anyone who uses their body creatively is being aware of the structures of the body and where we are in space and how we're using the various body parts. So embedded in that would be a bit of anatomy, kinesiology, movement science, and it certainly is beneficial for us to have a base knowledge and then continue to deepen our knowledge as we continue as professionals. Therefore, what I've used for anatomy and kinesiology resources has varied over time. I did have some knowledge from my early classical ballet and other types of dance techniques training, which I expanded upon during my Master of Fine Arts when I finally got a formal anatomy and kinesiology for dance course, at which time we used some dance anatomy, dance kinesiology texts, which were very useful and complete, but I didn't end up keeping as an ongoing resource. I just found the particular presentation of the material not something that's as useful for the application. However, I do still use many of the sheets from the anatomy coloring book, which is a staple in pre-med anatomy, human biology classrooms everywhere, and find that to be a really great analog resource when internet access or digital resources aren't available, and for a whole variety of contexts, dance and just general use in injury prevention and also injury treatment and understanding the mechanics of movement. That's still a resource that I would absolutely recommend to anyone who's interested in learning more. And if you're into the subject, you will already be familiar with. After that, I found yoga anatomy texts and resources particularly valuable and useful. I am also a yoga practitioner and these days a graduate of a 200-hour yoga teacher training program. So two of those favorite texts that I found, an earlier one that I picked up years ago, Anatomy of Hatha Yoga, a manual for students, teachers, and practitioners by H. David Coulter, which does more of a deep dive into certain practices and poses, as well as a more general introduction to anatomy and some of the concepts that we'll find in other books. A lot of beautiful illustrations and photos, and looking at the various systems of the body from that yoga lens. During said yoga teacher training, which was here in Germany at the Yoga Loft, I was introduced to this book, which is available in other languages as well. It's Yoga Anatomy 3D or Yoga Anatomy 3D, a beautiful full color book. I also use this a lot as a reference. It has gorgeous illustrations. The 3D nature make them somehow much easier to visualize and understand. The explanations are short and clear. They do, again, a deep dive into certain yoga practices and poses, but then a really nice general introduction and full color images that are just gorgeous to illustrate. Also, during my Master in Fine Arts program, I was introduced to a couple of texts that are more on the somatics and movement fundamentals, movement analysis side. I find that really fascinating, and as a dancer, it's particularly useful, but also in yoga and of course other movement modalities. This one is called Making Connections, Total Body Integration Through Bartenia Fundamentals by Peggy Hackney. Unfortunately, the format, the way the book is structured, I find really all over the place, at least in my first read and trying to reference back. And however, for the content that's included, it is, so far as I know, one of the very best texts, most comprehensive text that there is. So that's why I have lots and lots and lots of tags, because I do still use it a lot. And there's certain things that when they're grouped more thematically or in a certain order, at least for my thinking process, make more sense. And so if you really want to dive way down deep into the very basics of human movement, this is a great one and has applications throughout life as well. On my physical TBR, to be read list, unfortunately still, but long ago recommended to me by Betsy Fisher, is The Thinking Body, a study of the balancing forces of dynamic man by Mabel Ellsworth Todd, which also has some lovely illustrations, but has a lot more narrative description and analysis. This one, I think, is for a much more in-depth and advanced look at those physical forces and movement dynamics, but it's something that I'm looking forward to exploring. As well as a final resource, also during my yoga training, the anatomy teacher used 3D models through an app on the computer. Unfortunately, I do not recall exactly which one it was, but it was wonderful because it had animations that showed the workings of the muscles and joints from different angles, from different perspectives, in cross-section. And yes, you could really identify and look all around in the body. So what I've found is there are some newer apps that also perform those functions, and I will be sure to include one or two of those that I'm interested to check out myself in the article to come on the topic. And I would be so curious also to hear what are your favorite anatomy, kinesiology, human body, skeleton, somatic resources that have been helpful in your learning, in your creative practice, in sustainable movement, mindful movement, and all of the techniques that you might practice yourself. Always curious to learn more, and I actually am approaching this topic once again because this is an ongoing area of interest. But while I was recently at home on the Big Island of Hawaii, one of the parents of a student that I get to see from time to time when I'm there had noticed also that I have articles on movement and anatomy and injury protection and things like this, and was curious for further study for students who are really interested in those topics. What would be further resources that I recommend? So to that, I'm sharing a few of them with you here today, but it's just the start of the conversation, and I look forward to continuing in the future. Thank you for joining me, for watching, for moving together in spirit or in fact. Take good care of yourself and pay attention. Until next time.